Hi.
And I wanted all of us to get together and meet. And I thank you all so much for coming out. I know some came from a long distance, and if I had more money, you'd get some awards, but I don't. And I'm glad everybody loves their shirts, because that was on me, and I hope nobody's going to tell me they don't. So, I'll start it with a little story about Brian. Brian Elcott, don't you turn away from me. And Bobby. Bobby's not here, but Bobby's daughter is. So, Pat and I used to babysit. And Brian would not go to sleep for me. And I remember taking him upstairs and telling him, you go to sleep. And so they were quiet for a while, and then it got loud, and then I went up there and he's just laughing at me. And I went, what am I gonna do? Nothing. So I got away with it, but there's just some little stories. Anybody who wants to come up, Uncle Bob or Uncle Dave, and tell us some stories, like there's some stories like Aunt Jackie's gone, so if you had some stories of her or Uncle Pat and my dad, that kind of thing, we would so appreciate hearing. And if Uncle Bob and Uncle Dave are getting the end of the rope and want to take the mic right now.
I got a request for Uncle Bob.
Okay, what's your request?
I want to hear about his military experience.
Uncle Bob's military experience. You were awesome, weren't you?
Let me get another beer.
So, if you want, so that we can all hear it, anyone can come take the mic. I'm just opening it. So, again, thank you for coming out. Pat, my brother Pat, he always says, when he gets mad at me, he'll say, he calls me Margie. And then I'll look at Pat and I'll say, well, okay, Dave. Because Pat was just like Dave, looked like him when he was younger. And I love it when he calls me Margie, so there, Pat. So, and like James and Glenn Jr., my son, they would be out and about. And James, you tell this story about Glenn.
Oh.
Nana! When the guy came
No. I was out at Sanford Lake, and I was hanging out, and I ran into this guy who was hanging out with mutual friends, and he just randomly walked up to me and he said, do you know Glenny? And I said, well, yeah, Glenny who? And he said, Glenny Olson, and I talked to him and how he said that, he was my cousin and stuff. And he was just a complete stranger, so it was kind of funny. My Aunt Julie always grew up telling us we couldn't tell us both apart, but I've gained a little weight now so that we could make a difference up.
And then Aunt Becky's kids and Kathy Joe's kids and Lisa's kids look an awful lot alike. Ryan and, was it Kennedy? Where's Kennedy? Yeah, remember? You and Ryan could be twins. So, Uncle Dave, would you like to say anything? Okay, Bob. I'd bring the light to you, but...
While Uncle Bob comes up, I just have a story about Uncle Bob. He remembers. You remember when we used to go to Little Glen Lake? A lot of the Coffeys went to Little Glen and Big Glen. And I remember we were playing football on the beach. And I was quarterback, and Uncle Bob was hiking me the ball. And I took my foot, and I pushed him on the rear end, and he fell down. Yeah, he chased me all the way out into the water. One thing about Uncle Bob, he couldn't swim. So he couldn't catch me.
I remember of a little Irish joke. I know some of my brothers, Mike and Pat, maybe it wasn't them, but they're coming home from school in Dublin, and they're going by, and the one brother says, Pat, you mind waiting here for me, Pat? I have to go to the confession. Oh, he says, I'll wait for you then. He goes to the confession, and he says, Pat, What do you hear for his father said? Well, I committed some sins. He says, what'd you do? He says, well, I had sex with a couple girls. You did you? Who were they? Oh, Father, he said, I can't tell you. So if you can't tell me, you're going to get out of here. He said, well, I can't tell you, Father. He said, was it Mary O'Brien? Oh, Father, I can't tell you. He said, was it Sue Sullivan? Oh, Father, I can't tell you. He says, will you get out of here and don't come back? So he runs down to his brother. He says, did he give you absolution? He says, no, but he gave me 2 good leads. That's my story.
So about your military, you were in the Marines?
No, I was in the Air Force.
You were in the Air
I
Force?
was in the Air Force judo team.
Didn't you fight Chuck Norris?
I was on the team with Chuck Norris,
Oh.
but he was a lightweight and I was a heavyweight. So
fun.
I think he was a 140 pounder at that time. But he's the same age I am. He's 77 now. Have you ever seen them in those advertisements? Don't believe it because he's 77.
You look better than he does.
Huh? No, because he's in weight division. I was a heavyweight and he was a lightweight. Yeah. And a good time in the service.
Tell the
Seen
story.
the world.
Tell the story about my dad with the doing the ticket, gave Father Kelly or
Oh, you get to Father Davy.
Father David.
Yeah, I was just on script, and her dad says, "Go over and give." He wasn't father yet. So give Bob Davy and show him this ticket. I said, "Yeah, well, I'll go on." I said, "I was about 12 years old." I said, "Bob Davy, can you buy this ticket for me?" He says, "Yeah." Well, then your dad calls him about 2 weeks later. He says, somebody called him and says, "You won the prize. So come on down to WKN Epsom." He goes down there, he goes, "Where's my prize?" He says, "What prize? There ain't no prize for you." Then he goes back and then shoot me out. I said, "I'm going to tell you, just go shoot your dad out." That's a true story.
What about Dad and Uncle Pat when they went in the seminary? Didn't Uncle Pat walk home?
That I don't know.
How about
David
them
knows
forks that Dad
about
welded on the front of his car?
Huh?
Remember them forks he welded on the front of his car? You guys got welded on that old Chevy? My dad had it.
Yeah, I kind of remember that, yeah.
So Dave knows the story about
I remember taking Pat's old 34 Ford. I was with Gary Potts and we come home and he couldn't lock the car, so Pat was sleeping. We took a ride around all Saginaw. Didn't have a license then.
you'd have to have one.
Yeah, but he didn't catch me. Oh yeah, we were poor. So we grew up, Mike and Patty had jobs and I didn't have that clothes and I said, well, I'd go in their closet and get their, sneak the clothes. Then they said, you ain't doing that anymore, so you put a lock on it. Both of them. And so I had to go to the prom that one time and they all left. So I took the hinges off the door and I got in that way. That's it for me.
Hey, I want to know, what did you and Uncle Gary and Jim Kelly do? You record yourselves. What did you talk about? Did you ever hear those recordings?
Jim Kelly used to go up to Grandma Sadie's place, Matt, Jimmy Kelly, and Mike. And I was a young one. So Grandma Sadie used to make cigarettes, and she would count them. And I'd be sitting there and she'd take give me ice cream and everything. Just somebody stole 4 cigarettes, Bobby. You know who they were? I said, yeah, Jimmy Kelly, get that coffee and my coffee. Oh, they didn't let me hang around them anymore.
Thank you, sweetie. Appreciate it. Uncle Dave, you want to say something? Huh? There's a story of you, was it? Oh, I remember we were up north, and there was a pontoon, and you, all of the uncles, Dad included, you guys went out on the pontoon, and the pontoon broke down. Do you remember that story? That was Bob's pontoon? What happened, Uncle Dave? Uncle Bob, did you have a pontoon?
Yeah.
Did it break down with all you guys out on the lake? Yeah, and I remember you guys coming back and Dad had this frightened look on his face and he couldn't swim.
Shot my urine.
Do you remember that up there? You were on that boat. No, you weren't. So does anyone have other younger